Good morning, and thank you very much for having invited me to this symposium in the context of the World Internet Conference. My name is Luca Belli, and my presentation of today will focus on interoperability and the value of this principle to foster open digital ecosystems. Let me open my presentation so that I can guide you through the presentation of today. First, a couple of information about my work and the institution where I work. As you might know, I'm professor at FGV Law School. FGV is currently ranked as the third most influential think tank in the world out of more than 11,000, and is also one of the main academic institutions in Brazil. At FGV, I coordinate the Center for Technology and Society that analyzes the impact of technology and society. And since 2018, I have been the director of the CyberBRICS project, which is the only existing research project analyzing the digital policies of the BRICS grouping, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and trying to put forward also recommendation on how to improve the convergence of these policies. And we will see in a couple of minutes that this is the core of my presentation of today. Indeed, I have co-authored with Professor Nicolo Zingales, my colleague here at FGV, a chapter on interoperability to foster open digital ecosystems in the BRICS. We analyze the BRICS interactions in this field as a case study of interoperability, and this chapter it has been published in the annual volume coordinated by the Chinese Academy of Cyberspace Studies that has been so kind to invite us to contribute to the volume. And the introduction of this case study, well, first, of course, has to start with a couple of words about the BRICS grouping itself. So Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and South Africa are a very interesting case study of legal interoperability and interoperability indeed, because they are a very diverse grouping. They are not a regional grouping, they are a very heterogeneous group of states, but they also have a very large population. More than 3.2 billion individuals live there. Thousands of enterprises are located in the BRICS countries. But interesting also, almost half of the internet population lives in the BRICS, and almost all internet users or internet businesses and countries around the world to some extent deal with technologies developed by the BRICS countries. Another very important point is that, to quote President-elect of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the BRICS has not been created to copy other institutions, but to do things differently and to try not to be dependent. So the fundamental goal of the BRICS has always been to build, to foster a multipolar order where the global south, or what is increasingly called the majority world, the developing world, has a stronger voice, and where institutions can be more keen on understanding and appreciating the needs of emerging economies. How digital policies entered into the picture of the BRICS? Well, of course, in 2013, after the Snowden revelations of the ongoing global surveillance schemes of the NSA, including also former President Dilma Rousseff personal line, this revelation they triggered a very sound reaction from leaders around the world, including the BRICS, that since the Itaquini Declaration of the 2013 BRICS Summit included cybersecurity as a top priority of their agenda, and the need to elaborate shared norms, standards, and practices to foster ICT security at the global level. So this embryonic idea of fostering legal interoperability, so compatible normative frameworks with regard to digital policies, and particularly cybersecurity, started with this Itakuni Declaration. Now, it's very interesting also to note that the BRICS countries have not entered into this effort of fostering legal interoperability through traditional means, but through a more developmental perspective. So, establishing in 2014 a working group on ICT security to share information, memorandum of understanding on ICT innovation and research to share joint research initiatives, to establish joint research initiatives, and of course the new development bank that was created in 2014 as the only BRICS-led institution to fund infrastructure projects, including, of course, ambitious digital infrastructure projects. This is what we call in intergovernance jargon enhanced cooperation. So a process that allows a group of countries to align their priorities, work together to fully implement their roles and responsibility with regard to digital policy making. And it is actually something that the BRICS countries have been explicitly advocating, their commitment to cooperate on digital governance issues, especially cybersecurity, as I was mentioning before, and personal data protection, that offer a very good example of how this plays out in practice. There is this, I analyzed this case study also in a recent publication of the Oxford University Press in the International Data Privacy Law Journal, how this data protection framework have been converging, giving a very telling example of how legal interoperability plays out the BRICS level. Now, to come back to our discussion of today, the challenges and opportunities of interoperability and the contribution of this year report, it is important to understand that interoperability is a technical principle, so it's born as a technical principle that allows multiple systems to exchange information and make use of the information despite the differences, the heterogeneity of the systems, but this can also be seen as a legal principle. So regulatory systems, juridical systems, legal systems can be interoperable, legally interoperable, adopting, promoting norms and principles that foster convergence and compatibility of these systems. So the benefit of this situation of interoperability and legal interoperability, of course, from a technical level, is interconnection of systems, but also equal treatment of similar products and services, and the promotion of fairness and also of innovation, thanks to a level playing field that is created by this interoperability. But also from a normative perspective, of course, the definition of shared principles and rules create shared rights and obligations and preserve openness of systems, while also preserving sovereignty of states that define their own rules and principles, but in a compatible way, right? This is something actually that is emerging in an even more prominent way in the latest BRICS summit. Here you can see a fragment of the latest declaration of the BRICS summit of 2022 that was held in a virtual format under the chairmanship of China. And there is again this reiteration of a commitment to foster an open, secure, stable, accessible, and peaceful ICT ecosystem. But also, again, since last year, this new commitment to establishing legal framework of cooperation amongst the BRICS countries on issues like cybersecurity. So this new willingness to establish compatible framework, normative framework, is attracting also new players. We will see in a couple of seconds this new BRICS Plus configuration that is attracting countries beyond the BRICS, but also it's a very good example of how the BRICS are playing a role of new digital locomotive. So the famous South Commission report of the 90s that stressed the relevance of having locomotives of the global South driving the development of the global South can be somehow rephrased, calling the BRICS the new digital locomotives that with their development project and with their normative projects are increasingly exercising a in an attraction of new states, new stakeholders. Like we have seen, for instance, very recently, Argentina formalizing its bid to join the BRICS, and other countries like Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Iran also expressing their interest to join this new model based on cooperation that I think will show the world how a both technical and legally interoperable cooperation may create very ambitious and very beneficial outcomes for not only for the BRICS and its population, but for the entire global population. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I will see you again next year on the next World Internet Conference. Bye-bye.